Well, after a quick preseason, let's kick things off for real with our junior hockey team. In this video and this episode, there's definitely going to be a lot to unpack, as we'll talk about the opening day roster, and there's been some transactions that occurred. You know what I mean, as it's time for another episode of Hi there, it's Brett Hornby here, and welcome back to my YouTube channel, and welcome back to my Calgary Hitmen in 6, up to episode 2 in season 4, as this is the 4th season that I have been recapping games on our junior hockey team, the Calgary Hitmen. And in this episode, we'll talk about how games 1 through 6 went for the Calgary Hitmen during the 2021-22 WHL regular season. And yes, I did actually go to the home opener, as I planned to do, just to finally be under the dome for the first time. I think I counted in 588 days. So before I get into the notes and that, if you want to follow along with this Calgary sports fans journey, just make sure you hit like, subscribe. So I mostly do talk Calgary sports media channel, and this is one of the things that I've been doing, is recapping games with the Calgary Hitmen, for example. But I'm doing it for the Calgary Flames, as I had my preseason episodes made for both the Calgary Hitmen and the Calgary Flames. And now with Calgary Stampeders football still going on with my Calgary Stampeders this month. And then wait until late November and December when Roughnecks play. So I'll be back with my Calgary Roughnecks this month. And also to note in these videos is I put timestamps in the description below if you want to jump to any particular segments or games that I do in these game recaps. But with this being the Calgary Hitmen junior hockey, I'm also going to mash in, like I said, the opening day roster, and a couple transactions happened. There was a trade, and actually we said goodbye to one popular goalie. I guess he has decided he wants to do something else. So I'll get to that when I get there. So let's bring up my notes, as I mentioned, and now let's talk about the opening night roster first before I get into the games, as there was actually a couple players that are no longer on the roster, as I mentioned, with the couple of transactions. So the forwards that was on the team, he said number 9 was Billal Noori, he's a right winger, and then number 10, Mason Finley, a right winger. They had number 11, Cael Zimmerman, a center. They got number 12, Oliver Tulk, center, player we drafted recently. And then number 14 is Tristan Zandee, a left winger. Number 15 is Matteo Danis, center. Number 16 is Anton Yatsyshin, a left winger. Number 17 is David Adaszynski, left winger. Number 19 is Sean Tschigerl, left winger. Number 21, center, Riley Schultz. Number 23 in Adam Kidd, left winger. Number 24 is Zach Funk, the right winger. Number 25, center, and Blake Allen. And to round out the forwards is number 27, Brendan Wynot. So now if you go to the defense, we got number 3, Evan Toth. Number 4, Briggs Orr. And there's no relation to this Bobby Orr defense you might have heard. He is actually an American. And definitely I looked it up, there's no relation. Number 5 is Jackson Vandalist. Number 6 is Luke Prokop. Number 7 is Owen Bellerman. Number 8 is Graydon Schutman. Number 22 is Tyson Galloway. Number 26 is Carter Yamiuk. And number 28 is Matthew Sutter, defenseman. And I actually remember asking the Calgary Hitmen fan page if he's related to that family, the Sutter family. And actually he said there's no, but he is actually born in Western Canada, so no relation to the Sutter family. So that was the defense. And now the goaltending. There was 3 goalies that were on the roster to start off the roster. Is number 1 in Ethan Bermajor, number 31 Jack Minotton, and number 35 Braden Peters. So there is your 2021-22 Calgary Hitmen when it comes to the opening night roster. So now I got the introduction and the roster out of the way. Let's get into the games. So game 1, this happened on Friday, October the 1st. As the Calgary Hitmen were opening up their regular season against the Lethbridge Hurricanes in Lethbridge at the MX Centre. That was a 7 p.m. puck drop. I always like to throw in that the Lethbridge Hurricanes were the former Calgary Wranglers, the second team that represented Calgary in the Western Hockey League. As they say, first game of the season had 6 goals in the first period alone. So if you like goals, this game definitely is for you. But what I'll get to is maybe it was too much on one side. Lethbridge opens up the scoring early as Jet Jones, what a name, past the minute and a half mark. So early in the game, Jet Jones scored for Lethbridge, so it's 1-0 early. Then on a power play, Lethbridge makes it 2-0 at the 6.5 minute mark as Logan McCutton scores. Calgary did get one back, as was David Adaszynski scores the first. It was the first Calgary Hitmen goal of 2021-22, just past the 9-minute mark, so it was 2-1 for Lethbridge at that point. And we're just halfway through the first period. Lethbridge got 2 more on the board in the first. First, it was Noah Boyko at 11:46, and it was Alex Thatcher who scored with 42 seconds left in the first period. So Lethbridge took a 4-1 lead at that point. However, Calgary, with literally 6 seconds to go in the first period, made it 4-2 as Adam Kidd scored. So Lethbridge had a 4-2 lead after the first period, so there was the 6 goals, as I mentioned. Second period featured a couple more goals, but both went to the Lethbridge Hurricane side. On a too-many-men penalty that Calgary took, Lethbridge on that said power play made it 5-2 as Noah Boyko scores his second of the game just before the 7.5 minute mark. Then Noah Boyko again scores to complete the hat-trick by scoring again at the 11.5 minute mark. So Lethbridge now is up 6-2, and that's how things stood after the second period, with Lethbridge now up 6-2. Both teams took 3 penalties each in the second period, but there was no more penalties scored after the third period. Just want to throw that in there. Heading into the third period, Lethbridge added to their lead. First it was Justin Hall, 38 seconds in, to make it 7-2 for Lethbridge. At that point, then Lethbridge added 2 more goals in a 1 minute and 41 second span. First was Chase Wheatcroft past the 13-minute mark, and then Logan Barley at exactly the 15-minute mark. So Lethbridge now had a 9-2 lead. At that point, I guess you can say, thankfully, Calgary was able to not allow that 10th goal. So ultimately, Lethbridge won this one very convincingly with a 9-2 win to start off the 2021-22 season. Not a good way to start it, but there was definitely a lot of shots in this game as Lethbridge outshot Calgary 44-43 in this one. So it was definitely a wide open game to kick off the regular season in the Western Hockey League. Calgary was led by Adam Kidd, who had a goal and an assist. Lethbridge definitely had a contingent of leaders, as I highlight multi-point players. It was Noah Boyko who had the hat-trick with 3 goals. Also note Justin Hull had a goal and 4 assists. Ty Nash had 3 assists, and Alex Thatcher had a goal and 2 assists. So when it comes to the goaltending, the story of this game was Brady Peters, who made 20 saves and 26 shots, but then Jack Bondon took over in the net after the Lethbridge 6 goals, made 15 saves on 18 shots, while it was Brian Thompson, who played the whole game for the Lethbridge Hurricanes, made 41 saves for Lethbridge. So that was game 1 for the opening game for 2021-22. So game 2, this happened on Sunday, October 3rd, as the Calgary Hitmen were at home at Scotiabank Saddledome, meant to say, 2 p.m. puck drop to take on the Calgary Hitmen, as this was the first time the Calgary Hitmen were at home in a very, very long time, and also the first time that myself was inside the Scotiabank Saddledome, I think 582 days to be exact, from that Border Collie game when the Calgary Roughnecks at the end of February till October 3rd. Gives you an idea how long it's been since I've been inside the Scotiabank Saddledome. So Calgary Hitmen had actually a quick start on this game on the power play. It was Luke Prokop who actually opened up the scoring just before the 3.5 minute mark. So Calgary had an early 1-0 lead in this game. However, after that, I felt Lethbridge was the better team for most of the period and the game, as I took this one in live. Lethbridge did tie up the game late in the first period as Yuri Kladiev scored on the power play just before the 16.5 minute mark. So it was 1-1 at that point, and the game was 1-1 after the first period. Second period, Lethbridge scored early on a power play goal. Once again, it was Yuri Kladiev who scored the second of the game just past the 2 minute mark. So Lethbridge now had a 2-1 lead early in the second period. I felt both sides had chances overall in the second period, but actually that was the only goal in the second period. So it was 2-1 for Lethbridge after 2. Lethbridge going into the third period, it was another play that scored before going into the third period. One play that stood out as I was there is that there was a slash on Matthew Sutter that was missed by officials. I remember seeing a big slash, like, what, no call? But that's junior hockey. Third period, Lethbridge scored early, once again, just like in the second period. It was Logan Bartlady who scores the second of the season at the 2.5 minute mark to make it 3-1 for Lethbridge at that point. Calgary did have some chances but could not find anything. Lethbridge bench did pull this one away as Chase Wheatcroft scored for his second of the season and the empty netter just past the 18 minute mark as Calgary pulled the goalie. So Lethbridge ultimately wins this one 4-1 and take the weekend set after beating Calgary 9-2 Friday night before in their home opener. Calgary actually outshot Lethbridge 41-36. It was a wide open game once again, but had more appreciation since I was out live for this one. Lethbridge obviously was led by Igor Klagiev, who had 2 goals in this one. Chase Wheatcroft had a goal and assist, and it was Joe Arneson who had 2 assists. For the Lethbridge Hurricanes, when it comes to the goaltending story, it was Braden Peters who made 32 saves for the Calgary Hitmen, while Brian Thompson made 40 saves for the Lethbridge Hurricanes. However, what was interesting in this game, actually the fans took all 3 stars. They gave 3 stars to the fans, given that this was the first time that the Calgary Hitmen were not only back in the Saddledom, but if you remember last year, during COVID, the Calgary Hitmen did not play in the Saddledom. They played at the Seven Chiefs Sportsplex in Tutina Nation. So definitely it was a big welcoming back. Now they have fans back in the Saddledom, first time since COVID began, and the Calgary Hitmen playing in their actual home. However, there was just over 1,350 fans in attendance. It definitely was a very lightly attended game, but it's during COVID, and regardless where you stand on the issue, you needed to be fully vaccinated now to go to games. And also, before closing out this game, this was that great neighbor game with those special jerseys that they were unveiled if you went to the Calgary Stampeders game when they were taking on the Montreal Alouettes back in August. And the one thing that definitely stood out with those jerseys, not only that skyline down there, but it actually had all the neighborhoods on the jersey to represent all the communities. So that was the home opener for Game 2, and I do have a video that I captured the home opener from my seat, so you could see that video as well. So that was Game 2, for summarizing that. So Game 3, this happened on Sunday, October the 10th, as the Calgary Hitmen were still at home. This time they were taking on the Swift Current Broncos. It was another 2 p.m. puck drop at Scotiabank Saddledom, Thanksgiving Sunday game, and the Calgary Hitmen had the better of the Swift Current Broncos in this game, as I would say. First goal of the game went to Calgary as Graydon Slipman scores at the exactly 8:44 of the first period. Calgary took a 1-0 lead, and that's how things stood after the first period. There was actually no scoring to report in the second period, so we still had a 1-0 lead for Calgary. Going into the third period, however, rough stuff to highlight. It was Jordan Boryasek for Swift Current and Evan Toth who had a fight at the 15:46 minute mark. Evan Toth actually took the extra roughing penalty. So there was actually a fight to highlight the second period when there's no goals. So going into the third period, the Calgary Hitmen did pull away with this one. First it was Adam Kidd, second of the season, past the 4-minute mark, scored to make it 2-0 for Calgary. Calgary shorthanded at the 11.5 minute mark, actually scored a goal on the penalty kill by Sean Tschigerl, scored his first of the season past the 12.5 minute mark, so Calgary took a 3-0 lead at that point. However, Swift Current got on the board on that same penalty, so they scored a power play goal, as Matthew Ward scored his second of the season on the power play, so it was 3-1 for Calgary. At that point of the third period, with the goalie pulled for Swift Current, Calgary was able to get the empty netter, as it was Tyson Galloway who scored the first of the season past the 18.5 minute mark, so Calgary led and ultimately took this game 4-1 to win their first game of the 2021-22 season. Calgary also shot Swift Current 41-26 in this game. Calgary was led by Sean Tschigerl with a goal and 2 assists, and Riley Fitter-Schultz, who had 3 assists in this game. When it comes to the goaltending story of the Calgary Hitmen, it was Braden Peters who made 25 saves for Calgary, while it was Reed Dick who made 37 saves for the Swift Current Broncos. So before getting to talking about Game 4, there was actually a trade that happened in the week. As actually the Calgary Hitmen and the Edmonton Oil Kings actually connected on a trade. As going to the Edmonton Oil Kings was defenseman Luke Prokop. Actually, he gets to go closer to home in this trade, and keep in mind, remember, Luke Prokop was drafted by the Nashville Predators in 2020, and actually he was also known for coming out for being gay. But he is going to the Edmonton Oil Kings. In exchange, the Calgary Hitmen pick up Keegan Slaney, and they're both defenseman Keegan Slaney and defenseman Blake Heward, and a 2022 second-round pick and a conditional 2024 fourth-round pick. Don't know what the conditions are in this trade, so to recap the trade, it was defenseman Luke Prokop going to the Edmonton Oil Kings. Coming to the Calgary Hitmen is defenseman Keegan Slaney, defenseman Blake Heward, a 2022 second-round pick, and a conditional 2024 fourth-round pick. So now when it comes to who's going to wear who, well, as Blake Heward is going to be wearing number 4 and Keegan Slaney wearing number 7. Apparently, defenseman Briggs Orr got re-signed, so he's not on the team anymore. And then speaking of players that got re-signed, well, actually goaltender Jack McNaughton was re-signed and not knowing where he's still going in hockey, so Jack McNaughton left the Calgary Hitmen. So new goalie that was brought in is Alex Garrett, who is going to wear Jack McNaughton's old number in 31. So that was the couple of transactions that I touched upon at the beginning. As we had a trade and some players moving on. And actually Jack McNaughton is a local here in Calgary. It's very popular fans, and I've heard some young fans were sad to hear that Jack McNaughton is no longer with the Calgary Hitmen. So now let's get back into the games part, recapping. So game 4, this happened on Friday, October the 15th, as the Calgary Hitmen were still at home. Taking on the Red Deer Rebels, this was a 7 p.m. puck drop at the Scotiabank Saddledome. Third straight home game for Calgary, but this one wasn't Calgary's night, as I would put spoiler alert for this one. Red Deer opened up the scoring early, as was Archie Baines. Scored a second of the season just past the minute-and-a-half mark, so Red Deer had took an early 1-0 lead at the opening minute and a half. Calgary did tie things up, actually, on the power play just before the 10-minute mark. Was Sean Tschigerl got a second, made it 1-1 at that point, and actually I'm going to say this is the closest that Calgary actually got in this one, as Red Deer dominated afterwards. At the 16.5-minute mark, it was Archie Baines got a second of the game, and Cael Zimmerman scored at his second of the season just past the 18-minute mark. So Red Deer got 2 goals very late in the first period. So Red Deer led 3-1 at that point, and that's how things stood after the first period. Red Deer up 3-1. Second period, Red Deer continued to add to their lead, as was Blake Stevenson, his second of the season, just before the 3.5-minute mark to make it 4-1 for Red Deer. And then Archie Baines scored his hat-trick just before the 6.5-minute mark, so Red Deer had a 5-1 lead. This is at the 6.5-minute mark of the second period. After that goal, on that face-off, it was Dalton Mellon for Red Deer and Jackson Van Leest for Calgary, who had a fight trying to spark Calgary. Ultimately, it was Dalton Mellon who took an unsportsmanlike penalty, so Calgary actually came out ahead. On that fight, however, it didn't seem to help, as Red Deer added a couple more goals later in the second period. First, it was Liam Keeler, just past the 13.5-minute mark, and then it was Christopher Sedoff, first of the season past the 17-minute mark, so Red Deer now had a 7-1 lead. At that point, that's how things stood after the second period, so definitely wasn't Calgary's night for this game. There were definitely a lot of coincidental penalties in this game in the second period, as this one was lopsided. Third period started off with Liam Keeler scoring his second of the game 59 seconds into the third period to make it 8-1 for Red Deer. And ultimately, Red Deer showed mercy and defeated the Calgary Hitmen 8-1. And so it was not Calgary's night. As I mentioned, Red Deer also outshot Calgary 35-33 in this one. Red Deer was obviously led by Archie Baines, who had 3 goals for the hat-trick and an assist. Liam Keeler also had a 2-goal game, and both Christopher Sedoff and Blake Stevenson each had a goal and assist. So when it comes to the goaltending story for the Calgary Hitmen, Braden Peters made 20 saves on 27 shots. And then there was Alex Garrett, who recently Calgary picked up after Jack McNaughton left. He played in the third period. He made 7 saves on 8 shots, so he probably allowed that first goal or goal on that first shot, and then closed the door after that. Well, it was Connor Ungar who made 32 saves for the Red Deer Rebels. So that was game 4. Wasn't pretty for the Calgary Hitmen, another lopsided loss. Excuse me. Game 5 on Saturday, October 16th. The Calgary Hitmen were taking on the Red Deer Rebels again, but this time it was up in Red Deer at the PV Mart Centrium, 7 p.m. puck drop. The ultimate question for this game is how Calgary will rebound the next night after losing 8-1 the previous night. Actually, Calgary came out swinging after being destroyed the night before. They actually outshot Red Deer 13-4 in the first period alone. Calgary did open up the scoring late in the first period. It was Keegan Slaney, one of the players they recently picked up from the Edmonton Oil Kings, got his first past the 17.5 minute mark, so Calgary had a 1-0 lead at that point, and that's how things stood up the first period. Second period, Red Deer did press back, but Calgary still was the better team overall. There was no scoring report in the second period, so it was still 1-0 for Calgary. After the second period, going into the third period. Third period, Calgary on the power play. As their lead, it was Zach Funk, who scored his first of the season, just past the 6.5 minute mark. So Calgary had a 2-0 lead at that point, and ultimately the Calgary Hitmen took this one 2-0, I should say, after being destroyed the night before. So this was Calgary's first road win of the 2021-22 season. Calgary also outshot Red Deer 33-25 in this one. Calgary was led by Keegan Slaney, the newcomer, who had a goal and assist, and it was Braden Peters who made 25 saves for Calgary in the shutout, first shutout for the Calgary Hitmen this season, while it was Chase Coward who made 31 saves for the Red Deer Rebels. So before getting into Game 6, they announced the leadership group for the Calgary Hitmen. The captain of the Calgary Hitmen is Jackson Van Der Leest, the 28th captain in franchise history, and then the assistants goes to Cael Zimmerman, Riley Filler-Schatz, Tyson Galloway, and Sean Tschigerl. So that is your leadership group in Game 5. So Game 6, for the last game to recap in this episode before we go on to other things in this video, is on Friday, October 22nd. The Calgary Hitmen were on the road as they were taking on the Swift Current Broncos at the Innovation Credit Union Iplex. That was a 7 p.m. puck drop to, so I'll say, off to Saskatchewan for the start of weekend set against Swift Current Broncos. And yeah, this is the first time the Calgary Hitmen are playing outside of Alberta since COVID began. First period, Calgary set the tone and dominated the play that continued throughout the first and second periods. Calgary opened up the scoring past the 7.5 minute mark, as was David Adaszynski scores his second of the season, and Calgary made it 1-0. Sean Tschigerl scored his third of the season just before the 15.5 minute mark. So Calgary led 2-0 at that point, and that's how things stood after the first period. Calgary also outshot Swift Current 16-8 in the first period alone, and then continued that dominance in the second period as the Calgary Hitmen outshot the Swift Current Broncos 14-3. Second period, Calgary added to the lead with those shots. First, it was Sean Tschigerl scored his second of the game just before the 5.5 minute mark to make it 3-0 for Calgary, and then Calgary got 2 goals in a 56-second span. First was Riley Filler-Schatz, first of the season, just before the 13.5 minute mark. And then it was Blake Allen, who also got his first goal of the season at exactly 14:18 of the second period. So Calgary now led 5-0 at that point, and Calgary took a 5-0 lead going into the third period. Swift Current did press back and had a little better of the third period. Swift Current did score 2 goals of their own in a 53-second span in the third period, but that did not come until the 17.5 minute mark. First, it was Caleb Westruck, who got his second of the season past the 17.5 minute mark, and it was Josh Philman, who got his third just before the 18.5 minute mark. So that made it 5-2 for Calgary at that point, and ultimately that's how things ended, with Calgary winning this one 5-2, so they won their second straight game. Calgary outshot Swift Current 38-20 overall in this game. So the Calgary Hitmen were led by Sean Tschigerl with 2 goals and an assist, and Riley Filler-Schatz had a goal and 2 assists. Zach Funk also chipped in with 2 assists of his own. So when it comes to the goaltending story of this game, Braden Peters only needed to make 18 saves for Calgary, while it was Isaac Pulche who made 33 saves for the Swift Current Broncos. So after 6 games, the Calgary Hitmen are 3-3-0-0. So they got 3 wins and 3 losses, but I'm going to still say 2 of those losses were in lopsided fashion by a combined score of 17-3 with that 9-2 loss and the 8-1 loss. So that is where the Calgary Hitmen are at. So if we just take a quick look at the stats and standings, this is on the Hitmen Hockey website right now. The quick stats I'll give is right now Sean Tschigerl is leading the team in scoring with 4 goals, 4 assists for 8 points. While Rutherford Schultz is second behind. He only has 1 goal, but he has 7 assists, so you got 2 players with 8 points in the first 6 games. So I'll just do that for the stats for this stage of the season, and the fact that I had other business with the roster and the trades and the reassignments and leadership group. So when it comes to the standings, as I mentioned, that the Calgary Hitmen are actually 5th in the Central Division. As after 8 games, the Edmonton Oil Kings are 5-2-0-1 for 11 points. The Red Deer Rebels are second. They played 9 games. They're 5-3-1 for 11 points. And then the Medicine Hat Tigers, after 8 games, are 4-3-0-1 for 9 points. So more of our opponents have played more games. The Lethbridge Hurricanes are also 3-3-0-0 for 6 points, 4th in the Central Division in the Eastern Conference. And then the Calgary Hitmen were mentioned, they are 3-3-0-0 for 6 points. The Western Hockey League has an overtime loss and a shield loss columns separately, unlike the NHL where they just have overtime and shield losses in one column. Just in case if you're wondering. So the other team, as I mentioned, the last division rival is the Swift Current Broncos, who are 6th place in the Central Division. After 9 games, they're 2-5-2 for 6 points. So it's still too early, so I think as we go later in the season, I'll break down more stats and look around the Western Hockey League. But just to keep the video not going too long, I'll just do that since we're still early in the season. So the last part of the video is we'll take a look ahead to the Calgary Hitmen, what they have on schedule for the next 6 games, which will be the next episode for games 7 to 12. So let's look ahead. So game 7, scheduled on Sunday, October the 24th, as the Calgary Hitmen will be back at home, as they will be hosting the Brandon Wheat Kings. That'll be a 4 p.m. puck drop at Scotiabank Stadium. I may actually go to that game, because I do have potential other plans that I might do before that game, so I might actually be at that game. Game 8, this will be on Wednesday, October the 27th, as the Calgary Hitmen will still be at home, as they will be hosting the Winnipeg Ice. That'll be a 7 p.m. puck drop at the Scotiabank Stadium. And then game 9, this will be on Halloween, October 31st, Sunday, October 31st, I meant to say, as the Calgary Hitmen will be hosting the Red Deer Rebels. That will be at 2 p.m. puck drop at the Scotiabank Stadium. And then going into the first weekend of November, Calgary actually is going to be playing a couple games on game 10. This will be on Friday, November the 5th, as the Calgary Hitmen will still be at home as they are hosting the Edmonton Oil Kings. That would be a 7 p.m. puck drop at the Scotiabank Stadium. Then on the next night, on game 11 for Saturday, November 6th, as the Calgary Hitmen will have a weekend set with the Edmonton Oil Kings, but this game will be on the road at Rogers Place. And then the last game, which will be in episode 3. So I guess after Friday, November 12th, that's when the cutoff will be. The Calgary Hitmen will be on the road as they will be taking on the Swift Current Broncos. That will be the Innovation Credit Union Iplex. That'll be a 6 p.m. puck drop. So that's the what's on tap for the Calgary Hitmen for the next 6 games. Still hard to say where I feel the Calgary Hitmen are at this point. I mean, junior hockey is a different animal when it comes to having talent in a window time frame. But I mean, right now it looks all right that we're 3-3, but it's just those 2 losses that were very, very lopsided. But we'll see what's in store for the next 6 games. For the Calgary Hitmen. So that is my Calgary Hitmen in 6. Recapping how the first 6 games went for the Calgary Hitmen during 2021-22. To close out, as I say, if you want to follow along with this Calgary sports fans' journey, Home the Flames, Hitmen, Roughnecks, Stampeders. I mostly do talk Calgary sports on my channel, like recap games, stories. With this being junior hockey and not getting as many views with those videos, I mashed in, other news like the trade and the player reassignments and the opening roster. But I also do a variety of Non-sports content when I have time, like personal blogs, attempt to comedy, and as to share my experience in on the road or sport event, like for example the Calgary Hitmen home opener, and I've done some blogging to go this past summer, but I've sort of slowed down on that because my sports content has picked up. But if that all sounds like you'd be interested to watch, to follow along with this Calgary sports fan's journey, just make sure you hit like, subscribe. I also have my other social links down in the description below. For other ways you can follow me, and this is my main channel. Also, if you could check out my second channel, in Brett Hornby Shorts, where on that channel I exclusively put short form content with the YouTube Shorts format. For example, on that channel I've been putting Calgary Stampeders and Calgary Flames post-game recaps. So I put that on my Shorts channel, so I appreciate like, subscribe on obviously my main channel and my Shorts channel. So as I say, if that all sounds like be interesting to watch, to follow along with the Calgary sports fans journey, you know what you do. So I was going to say, let's go Hitmen. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.